The desert stretched endlessly, waves of golden sand rising and falling like the surface of a restless sea. The sun hung heavy above, pouring down its light with no mercy. Tom walked slowly, his boots sinking into the sand with each step. His shirt clung to his back, soaked with sweat, yet his eyes carried determination. He was not here for comfort. He was here to find what no one else had dared to search for. Tom was a field researcher, not the kind who worked in comfortable offices, but the type who wandered into forgotten places. For months, he had been traveling across this desert, guided by rumors of strange sounds carried on the wind and tales of vanishing caravans. The local people whispered of a cursed land buried beneath the dunes, a place that swallowed travelers whole. They called it the Silent Ground. At first, Tom thought it was only a story told to keep wanderers away. But then his drone scans picked up unusual energy beneath the surface. A grid of shapes, sharp lines in the sand where no natural formation should exist, appeared on his monitor. Something vast lay underground, something built, not formed by nature. That was enough to keep him searching. On this morning, the desert had been quiet. The wind had stopped, and the sand shimmered in stillness. As he climbed a dune, Tom's eyes caught a flicker, something reflecting sunlight among the grains. He crouched, brushed away sand with his gloved hands, and froze. Beneath the surface was a shard of metal unlike anything he had seen before. It was golden, yet not soft. The surface was smooth and cold at first touch, but then warmth spread through his palm as if the fragment recognized him. When he struck it lightly with a stone, it gave off a faint, ringing sound that seemed to last too long, like a bell echoing through unseen halls. Tom stared at it with wide eyes. He knew ordinary metal could not behave like this. He pulled out his scanner. The device buzzed and displayed strange readings, symbols jumping across the screen, unable to lock on properly. Tom frowned. Technology rarely failed him, but now it acted like a confused child. He pocketed the fragment carefully and looked out across the dunes. If one piece was here, the rest of the structure could not be far below. By evening, he set up camp on higher ground, where he could see the endless horizon. The desert sky turned crimson, then purple, then black. Stars filled the heavens like scattered jewels. As Tom sat by his small fire, the golden fragment rested in his hand. Its glow reflected the firelight, almost alive. He wondered how long it had been buried. Hundreds of years? Thousands? Perhaps longer. The silence of the night was broken by distant voices. Tom turned sharply, hand on his radio, but then he realized the voices were not human. They were echoes, strange sounds that seemed to rise from beneath the earth. A soft humming followed, like wind moving through hollow chambers. Tom's heart raced. The stories were true. Something lived beneath the desert. The next morning, Tom went to the nearby village for supplies. He carried the fragment wrapped in cloth, careful not to show it openly. In the village, he met Mira, an engineer known for repairing ancient machines. She noticed his tired eyes and the dust that clung to his clothes. "You have been walking too far into the silent ground," she said with concern. "No one who goes there returns the same." Tom unwrapped the fragment and showed it to her. Myra's eyes widened. She touched it gently, and even she felt the faint vibration in its surface. "This is not from our world," she whispered. "I've studied many metals, many relics, but never this. Where did you find it?" Tom explained about the dune, the humming at night, the scanner readings. Myra listened carefully, her curiosity slowly replacing her fear. She was practical, but her mind loved mysteries. "The Labyrinth," she said at last. "The old ones spoke of it. A city beneath the sand made of gold that never fades. They said it was alive, and that it tested anyone who entered." Tom felt the weight of her words. For him, it was no longer a story. He had proof in his hand. The golden labyrinth was real. That night, Tom and Mira spread maps across the table in her workshop. With his drone data and her knowledge of the land, they traced patterns in the desert floor. To their amazement, the shapes aligned into a vast design corridors, chambers, and walls buried under endless dunes. Mira looked at Tom with both fear and excitement. If this is true, then what lies beneath could change everything we know about our world. But the desert does not give up its secrets easily. Are you ready to risk it? Tom smiled faintly, his eyes never leaving the golden shard. I came here to find the truth, and the desert has finally answered. The fire in his heart burned brighter than the sun above the sands. The golden labyrinth was waiting, and Tom knew he would not rest until he uncovered its secrets. The desert morning was pale and cool when Tom and Mira set out together. Their packs were heavy with ropes, lights, and water, but their minds carried something far heavier: curiosity mixed with fear. The maps they had pieced together showed one place where the dunes seemed to form a circle, as if the earth itself hid a doorway. It was far from the village, in a part of the desert where no one dared to stay after dark. The journey was not easy. The sand shifted under their feet, and the heat of the sun grew sharper with every step. Mira walked with steady focus, her eyes scanning the horizon. Tom checked his drone often, guiding them toward the point where the strange readings were strongest. At last, after hours of silence, they reached a vast dune shaped like a giant mound. It seemed ordinary, but Tom's scanner buzzed wildly, as if shouting that something unnatural lay below. "This is it," Tom said, his voice quiet. With awe, they climbed the dune together. At the top, the wind carried a faint sound, not like air moving through sand, but like a low hum coming from deep within the earth. Mira knelt, brushing her hand over the surface. The sand here was different, fine, almost metallic and warmer. Then the desert around it. They began digging with shovels, the work slow and exhausting under the burning sun. Hours passed, sweat poured, and the pile of sand beside them grew. At last, Myra's shovel struck something solid. The sound rang clear and strange, like a bell. Both froze, hearts pounding. Together they cleared away more sand until a broad slab of gold-like stone appeared. It was flat and smooth, carved with patterns that glowed faintly when touched by sunlight. Mira traced the carvings with her fingers. "This is an entrance," she whispered. Tom studied the lines and found a circle at the center. He pressed his hand against it, and the stone shifted under his touch. With a grinding sound, the slab split into sections, and the sand poured into a hidden shaft below. The air that rose out was cool, carrying the smell of dust and age. They tied ropes to heavy stakes and lowered themselves slowly into the darkness. The shaft was lined with the same golden stone, the carvings glowing faintly as if welcoming them. Their lights cut through the black, showing a vast tunnel sloping downward. Gravity felt lighter here, as if the air itself pushed gently against them. As they descended deeper, the sound of their own movements grew strange. Footsteps echoed too long, voices carried further than they should. The walls seemed to drink in sound and release it slowly, like a memory. Mira glanced nervously at Tom. "It feels like the place is listening to us." Tom said nothing, but he felt the same unease. He reminded himself that he had come for answers, not comfort. The tunnel opened into a wide corridor, its ceiling high and arched. The walls shimmered faintly, as if tiny stars were trapped within the stone. They walked slowly, careful not to disturb the silence. Every step seemed to wake something ancient. After some distance, they reached a chamber with 3 passages leading in different directions. Each passage was marked with glowing symbols, none of which Myra recognized. The air here was heavier, pressing against their chests. Tom lifted his scanner, but the device went wild, its screen filled with shifting patterns. He switched it off in frustration. "This place does not want machines. Myra said softly. It wants us. Tom studied the symbols carefully. One looked like a flame, another like waves of water, and the third like a spiral. He pointed to the spiral. This is the path we follow. Spirals mean depth. This labyrinth was built downward, not outward. Mira nodded, trusting his instinct, and they entered the spiral-marked passage. The corridor twisted slowly, its turns pulling them deeper into the earth. Strange patterns glowed brighter as they moved, responding to their presence. Sometimes the floor felt soft like sand, other times firm like stone. Once, Myra stumbled as if gravity shifted sideways, pulling her toward the wall before releasing her. She gasped, clinging to Tom's arm. This place changes the rules of the world, she whispered. They pressed on, their lights catching glimpses of shapes carved into the wall's, figures tall and thin, with long arms reaching toward the sky. Their faces were smooth, their eyes wide, staring not at each other but upward, as if waiting for something from the stars. At last, they entered a chamber larger than anything they had seen. The ceiling rose so high it was lost in shadows. In the center stood a massive door carved with countless spirals and lined with glowing veins of gold. The door pulsed softly, as if alive. Mira stepped closer, her voice trembling. This is not just a tomb. This is something greater. The builders wanted this place to be found, but only by those willing to risk everything. Tom reached out, placing his hand on the door. The spirals lit up at his touch, spreading outward like ripples. In water, the door responded only to him, ignoring Myra. With a deep, echoing sound, it began to open. A rush of cool air swept over them, carrying scents of stone and something older than time. Beyond the door, the darkness waited, silent and endless. Tom looked at Myra, his eyes steady. We are not turning back now. Together they stepped through, leaving behind the desert sun and entering the heart of the golden labyrinth. The golden door closed behind Tom and Mira with a sound like thunder rolling through stone. For a moment, they stood in complete silence. Their lights revealed a wide hall stretching far ahead, its floor polished smooth and shining faintly as if lit from within. The air was cool and heavy, carrying a faint hum that seemed to echo from every wall. Tom took a cautious step forward, and the hum deepened, vibrating through the solace of his boots. Myra followed close behind, her eyes darting around the strange patterns carved into the walls. The carvings were different hair shapes of beasts with long bodies, wings folded close, and eyes shaped like glowing orbs. They're watching us, Myra whispered. Tom did not answer. He felt it too, the sense of unseen eyes following their every move. As they walked deeper into the hall, the ground trembled slightly. From the shadows ahead, something began to move. A figure rose slowly, as if carved directly from the floor. Itself. It stood taller than both of them, its body shaped like stone but glowing faintly with golden lines that pulsed like veins. Its face was blank, except for two shining eyes that burned like fire. Tom and Mira froze. The figure took a step forward, and the ground shook. Another shape rose behind it, then another. Soon, 3 towering guardians stood before them, blocking the way forward. Myra whispered, If they attack, we cannot fight them. But the guardians did not strike. Instead, one raised its arm and pointed toward the floor. A circle of light appeared at Tom's feet, glowing brighter until it formed a pattern of shifting lines. The guardian's eyes fixed on him, waiting. It wants us to do something, Tom said quietly. The lines on the floor twisted into a puzzle, shapes moving like pieces of a game. Mira bent down, her sharp mind already searching for answers. It is a memory test, she said. The shapes appear, then vanish, and we must repeat the order. The symbols flashed in a sequence. Mira tried first, touching the glowing tiles in the same order, but she missed one. The guardian's eyes flared, and the ground shook violently, nearly throwing them off balance. Tom steadied her. "Let me try." He closed his eyes, blocking out fear, and focused on the rhythm of the symbols. Instead of relying only on sight, he used his instincts, letting the sequence flow like music. In his mind, when he repeated the order, the tiles glowed brighter, and the guardian lowered its arm. The ground became calm again. "You did it," Myra breathed. But the trial was not over. The second guardian stepped forward. This time, the floor shifted into a narrow bridge that rose above a deep pit. The pit glowed with swirling light, endless and dizzying. The bridge was thin, bending under the weight of every step. "We must cross," Tom said. Myra's legs trembled as she looked down. "If we fall, there will be no return." Tom went first, moving slowly, balancing each step with steady breaths. The bridge bent but held. Myra followed, her heart racing. Halfway across, a sudden shift in gravity pulled her sideways toward the pit. She cried out, arms flailing. Tom turned quickly, reaching for her hand. His grip caught her wrist just before she slipped away. With all his strength, he pulled her back onto the bridge. Together they reached the other side, breathing hard but alive. The second guardian lowered its head, its glowing eyes dimming. Now the third guardian stepped forward. The chamber darkened until only the guardian's eyes and a circle of light on the wall remained. Strange symbols flashed across the circle, forming patterns of sound. A deep hum filled the air, vibrating like music. "It is a sound trial," Myra realized. "We must answer with the same tones." Tom listened carefully. The tones rose and fell in a rhythm that felt almost familiar, like a song. Myra tried to copy them with a small device from her pack, but the notes came out wrong. The guardian's eyes brightened, and the hum grew harsh. Tom stepped forward. He did not have Myra's knowledge of machines, but he trusted something else, his human voice. He closed his eyes and hummed the tones back, letting his instinct guide him. The sound was not perfect, but it carried emotion, a human warmth that no device could create. The chamber fell silent. The guardian tilted its head as if studying him. Then its eyes dimmed, and all three guardians stepped aside. The path ahead opened, glowing with golden light. Myra looked at Tom in wonder. "Why? Did they respond to you and not to me? You did not solve the trials with knowledge alone. You used something else." Tom thought about it. The guardians seemed to test not skill, but persistence, instinct, and the ability to adapt. Qualities that belong deeply to humans. "Maybe this place was built to see what we are made of," he said, as they walked past the silent guardians. Tom felt both fear and pride. The labyrinth had not tried to destroy them. It had measured them, and it had allowed them to continue. What lay deeper, he could not imagine, but he knew one thing: the labyrinth was alive, and it had chosen to let them pass. The guardians faded back into the stone, their golden light dimming until they became part of the walls once again. The great hall grew silent. Only the faint hum of the labyrinth remained, a steady sound that seemed to come from every direction. Tom and Myra stood still for a moment, trying to catch their breath. They had survived the trials, but both knew this was only the beginning. The path ahead glowed faintly, guiding them forward like a line of fireflies in the dark. Tom's hand brushed the wall as they walked, feeling its warmth. The stone pulsed gently under his palm, as though it carried a heartbeat. The deeper they went, the stronger the pulse became, until even Myra noticed it. "This place is alive," she said softly. "It feels like we are walking inside something that breathes." Tom nodded. He felt it too. The labyrinth was not just a structure. It was a creation built with purpose, and it had been waiting for someone to enter. After what felt like hours of walking, the narrow corridor opened suddenly into a space so vast it made them stop in awe. They had entered the core chamber, The chamber was a perfect circle, its walls lined with towering golden pillars that stretched high into the shadows above. Each pillar glowed faintly, humming with quiet energy. In the center of the chamber floated a massive crystal sphere, suspended in the air without support. The sphere rotated slowly, its surface shimmering like water. With every turn, it projected shifting images across the chamber: stars, planets, and endless patterns of light. Myra gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "It is a map," she whispered. "Not of this desert, not even of our world. It is the map of the stars." Tom stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the sphere. The images shifted again, and he saw Earth, small and blue, glowing among countless others. Lines of light extended from Earth to distant stars, connecting it to places he had never known. The sphere pulsed brighter when Tom stood before it, as if recognizing him. Myra noticed it too. "Why does it react to you?" "It ignores me, but it moves when you are near." Tom reached out slowly. His hand hovered inches from the surface of the sphere. The moment his fingers brushed it, the chamber filled with light. The pillars hummed louder, and the sphere expanded, filling the space with moving images. Tom staggered back, overwhelmed, but the light did not hurt him. Instead, it poured into his mind. Visions filled his thoughts: endless deserts that once were oceans, mountains rising and falling through ages, skies filled with creatures that no longer existed. He saw cities of glass and gold, taller than mountains, standing beneath alien suns. He saw beings tall and graceful, their eyes filled with light, building wonders that defied time. And he saw them vanish, leaving only silence. Tom fell to his knees, his breath coming fast. Mira rushed to him. "Tom, what happened?" He raised his head slowly, his eyes glowing faintly with reflected light. "They built this place," he said in a shaking voice. "An ancient people. They seeded worlds. They tested species to see who could endure." Myra's face was pale. "Tested? You mean they were waiting for someone?" Tom nodded. "Yes. Waiting for us." The sphere spun faster, showing images of humans farming, building, fighting, surviving storms and wars. Then it showed other species, strong but rigid, clever but unable to change. One by one, those species faded from the sphere, leaving only humanity. A voice, faint but clear, echoed through the chamber. It was not a voice of words but of meaning, speaking directly into their minds. "The final inheritors," the voice said. Myra shivered. She had never felt so small. "Why humans? We are fragile compared to so many others." The vision answered with images of persistence. A man climbing a mountain despite wounds. A woman crossing a storm with nothing but determination. A child rebuilding after destruction. Humans failed many times, but each time they rose again. Tom's chest tightened. "Because we do not give up," he whispered. "That is why they chose us." The sphere dimmed slightly, its images slowing. In its glow, 2 new paths appeared. At the far side of the chamber, carved into the wall. Each path was marked by different symbols, one of a closed hand, the other of an open flame. Mira stared at them. 2 choices. One must lead to what they left behind. Tom stood, his eyes still on the glowing sphere. He felt the weight of the labyrinth pressing down on him, not in threat, but in expectation. The Guardians had tested them. The labyrinth had measured them. Now, it was offering something greater. Mira placed her hand on his arm. "Tom, whatever lies beyond those paths, it is not only for us. It could change all of humanity. We must choose carefully." Tom looked back at the sphere one last time. Its glow softened, like a star fading into dawn. He felt certain of one thing: the labyrinth had been waiting for this moment, for this decision. And somehow, it had chosen him to make it. Together, Tom and Myra turned toward the twin paths their hearts heavy with both fear and wonder. The golden labyrinth was no longer just a mystery. It was a promise, and its true test was only beginning. The two paths waited in silence, each glowing faintly with golden light. One was marked with the symbol of a closed hand, firm and unyielding. The other burned with the sign of an open flame, warm but dangerous. Tom and Myra stood between them, the air heavy with expectation. Tom studied the symbols carefully. He felt as if the labyrinth itself was watching, waiting for his choice. Myra's eyes moved between the two paths, her face troubled. "It feels like more than a direction," she said softly. "It feels like a question." Tom nodded. "The closed hand means to keep. The open flame means to give. One is silence. The other is power." They chose the path of the flame. The corridor was narrow, its walls flickering with lines of light that danced like fire. The deeper they went, the stronger the glow became until the air itself shimmered with warmth. Tom felt his chest tighten, not from heat but from something pressing against his mind. It was as if the labyrinth wanted to show him something, and his thoughts were no longer his alone. The corridor ended in a wide chamber. At its center rose a column of golden stone, its surface carved with countless spirals and stars. Floating above the column was a crystal shard, smaller than the great sphere they had seen earlier, but burning brighter. Its light filled the chamber with shifting visions, not on the walls this time, but inside their minds. Tom staggered, gripping his head. Myra placed a hand on his shoulder. "What do you see?" she asked. Tom opened his eyes slowly, his voice shaking. "The past. Their past." The shard poured visions into him. He saw the builders again, the tall, graceful beings who had raised cities of light. They traveled between worlds, planting life, guiding it, then stepping back to watch. For ages, they sought a species that could endure beyond the limits of strength or cleverness. Many rose high, but fell when challenges came. The builders watched them fade, disappointed again and again. And then, far away on a small blue world, humans appeared. Fragile, unremarkable, but unwilling to surrender. The shard showed scenes of fire and hardship, floods and famine, yet humans always stood again. Their strength was not in their bodies, but in their spirit. Myra saw fragments of the vision too, enough to make her tremble. "We are not the strongest," she whispered. "Not the fastest, not the most advanced. Yet we remain." Tom's voice was low. "That is what they wanted. Not perfection, not power. They wanted persistence. The will to keep walking when the path ends." The shard glowed brighter, and the vision changed. Tom saw Earth's deserts. Long ago, when oceans stretched across them. He saw storms reshaping the land, mountains crumbling into sand. The shard whispered a truth. This labyrinth had waited for humanity, hidden under the shifting dunes, ready to reveal itself when the time was right. Then came another vision, two choices. In one, the shard darkened, sealing its knowledge forever, leaving humanity to grow on its own. In the other, it flared with light, releasing vast power, machines that could build worlds, heal broken lands, and reshape the future. But along with the gift came danger, for great power could also destroy. Myra's face grew pale. "It is a test of choice. They're not only asking if we can endure. They are asking if we are ready to carry such a burden." Tom stood silent for a long moment. He felt the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. The labyrinth had tested them with puzzles, with balance, with sound. Now it was testing something far greater, their judgment. Myra touched his arm, her voice soft but urgent. "Tom, think carefully. If humans gain this power, what will they do with it? We build, yes, but we also destroy. I fear greed more than weakness." Tom looked into the glowing shard. He thought of the trials they had faced. The Guardians had not asked him to be perfect. They had asked him to try, to endure, to rise after failure. That was humanity's true nature, not to avoid mistakes but to keep moving despite them. Maybe they knew, Tom said slowly. Maybe they knew we would not always use it well. But they trusted that, in the end, we would keep walking forward. The shard pulsed at his words, as if responding. The chamber filled with light so strong that the golden stone itself seemed to melt into brightness. For a moment, Tom felt he was standing not in a desert chamber, but among stars themselves. Endless and eternal dot. When the light dimmed, the shard floated lower, resting in his hands. It was warm, vibrating faintly like a heartbeat. Mira stared at him, her eyes wide. "It has chosen you," she whispered. Tom closed his fingers around it. He felt not triumph, but responsibility. The labyrinth had revealed its truth, and now he carried it. Whether the knowledge became humanity's greatest gift or its greatest danger depended on what he did next. The hum of the labyrinth softened, almost like a sigh. The Guardians did not return. The walls no longer shifted. The trials were over. The desert had given its secret, and it had given it to a human. Tom and Mira stood in silence, the golden shard glowing between them. The revelation was clear. Humanity was the inheritor of the Builder's legacy. The question now was not if. They could endure, but if they were wise enough to guide what had been placed in their hands. The chamber was quiet after the revelation. The shard pulsed faintly in Tom's hand, as though it had a life of its own. Its glow painted his face with soft golden light, and Mira could not take her eyes off it. The labyrinth no longer tested them, no longer shifted its walls or summoned guardians. It waited, patient and still, for what Tom would decide. Tom's heart was heavy. He knew the shard held knowledge beyond imagination, machines that could heal lands, energy that could last forever, secrets of the stars. But he also felt the weight of danger. Humanity was clever, but also flawed. What if this gift brought more ruin than hope? Myra spoke first, her voice calm but firm. "Tom, you saw what it showed us. We are chosen, yes, but chosen does not mean ready. Humanity has fought wars for less than this. Imagine what they would do with the power to change worlds." Tom tightened his grip on the shard. "And if I refuse it, if I seal it away, then humanity will walk its own path," Myra said. "Without shortcuts. Without the risk of destroying itself with knowledge it does not understand." Tom lowered his gaze. "But it would also walk without the tools to heal the damage it has already done. The shard showed me our deserts as oceans. Our land is scarred. Maybe this gift would fix what we have lost." Myra's eyes softened. She could hear the hope in his voice, but also the burden. "You want to believe we are ready, but are you sure?" They fell into silence. Around them, the chamber seemed to breathe, the golden pillars humming faintly like a heartbeat. Tom felt as if the entire labyrinth was listening, waiting for him to speak. He walked slowly around the chamber, his boots echoing against the stone. His thoughts were heavy. The Guardians had tested instinct, balance, memory, and persistence. But none of those mattered if he failed here. The final trial was not about skill. It was about choice. Tom stopped before the great sphere in the center of the chamber, the star map that still turned slowly in the air. He lifted the shard toward it. Instantly, the sphere glowed brighter, projecting visions once again. This time, the vision showed two futures. In the first, he saw Earth healed. Forests spread across dry plains, rivers ran where deserts once ruled, and cities floated with clean energy. People worked together, guided by the shard's gift. Humanity reached the stars, not as conquerors, but as explorers. In the second vision, the shard's power was misused. Great machines tore land apart. Greed spread faster than wisdom, and fire covered the skies. The earth burned while humans fought over the gift meant to save them. Both futures were possible. Both futures were human. Tom lowered the shard slowly, his heart racing. It is not about ready or not, he said. It is about trust. The builders trusted us. They left this for us, knowing what we are. They saw our flaws. They saw our mistakes. And yet they still waited for us. Mira shook her head. But what if they were wrong? Tom turned to her, his voice steady now. Then we will prove them right. Because that is what humans do. We fall, we fail, but we rise again. They chose us not because we are perfect, but because we do not give up. The shard pulsed strongly in his hand, glowing brighter at his words. The chamber hummed louder, as though the labyrinth itself approved. Mira looked at him, torn between fear and admiration. She wanted to argue, but she saw the fire in his eyes, the same fire she had seen when he first showed her the golden fragment in the village. Then you have made your choice, she whispered. Tom lifted the shard high. Golden light burst from it, filling the chamber. The pillars shone like suns. The walls vibrated with deep music, and the star map expanded until it covered every surface. The labyrinth was no longer silent. It sang. Vision swept through Tom's mind. He felt knowledge flow into him, not as words, but as understanding, how to build, how to heal, how to create. It was overwhelming, like holding the weight of 1,000 worlds. But beneath the flood of knowledge was a voice, the same voice that had called him inheritor. Carry it, the voice said. Not as a weapon, not as a crown. Carry it as a fire. The light faded slowly, and Tom found himself kneeling, the shard still glowing softly in his hands. Mira helped him stand, her eyes filled with both fear and pride. What happens now? She asked. Tom looked at the shard, then at the golden chamber around them. Now we take it back. Humanity must decide what to do with it. I cannot keep it hidden, and I cannot use it alone. It belongs to all of us. Myra nodded slowly. She still feared what the world might do with such power, but she also understood his resolve. The labyrinth had chosen him for a reason. The path behind them opened once more, leading back toward the surface. The labyrinth's hum softened, no longer a test but a farewell. Tom held the shard close to his chest. The choice was made. The builder's legacy was now in human hands, and the future would rise or fall with what they chose to do. The golden labyrinth no longer tested Tom and Myra. Its hum was gentle now, like the last notes of a song fading into silence. The path that had brought them so deep into the earth now glowed faintly, leading back toward the surface. It felt like the labyrinth had given them all it could, and was now asking them to leave. Tom held the shard close. Its soft light pulsed like a heart against his palm, steady and alive. Every beat reminded him of the choice he had made. It was no longer just a piece of crystal. It was knowledge, legacy, and responsibility. Myra walked beside him, her eyes fixed on the path, her thoughts heavy. They climbed the long corridors they had once feared. The guardians did not rise this time. Their golden eyes stayed closed, their stone bodies still. It was as if they recognized Tom as the one who had passed the final trial. The labyrinth did not need to test him anymore. When they reached the shaft where their ropes still hung, sunlight spilled faintly from above. Tom paused and looked back at the endless golden halls stretching into the shadows. For a moment, he felt torn. A part of him wanted to stay, to learn more, to explore every chamber. But he knew the labyrinth was not meant to be lived in. It was meant to be carried into the world beyond. They climbed slowly, their tired muscles burning, until at last they emerged into the desert. The evening sun painted the dunes in red and gold, and the air was warm and dry. Tom took a deep breath of open air, and it felt sharper, brighter. as if the world above had changed while they were below. The great slab that had once sealed the entrance shifted on its own. Sand poured over it until the desert looked untouched again. The labyrinth had hidden itself once more, as if it wished to sleep after giving its secret. Only Tom and Mira would know where it lay. They set up a small fire as night fell. Stars filled the sky, the same stars that had spun across the great sphere inside the labyrinth. Tom looked at them with new eyes. They were no longer unreachable lights. They were destinations, waiting for humanity. Myra broke the silence. Tom, you carry something greater than any person has ever carried. What will you do with it? Tom looked at the shard in his hands, its glow reflected in his eyes. I cannot keep it to myself. This is not mine alone. It belongs to humanity. The builders left it for us, not for me. Mira nodded, though worry lingered in her face. And if the world fights over it? If people use it for greed, not for hope? Tom's voice was steady. Then we will rise again, like we always do. That is what the labyrinth showed us. We are not chosen because we are perfect. We are chosen because we keep walking, even when we fall. If mistakes are made, then we will endure them, and we will keep moving forward. Myra studied him for a moment, then smiled faintly. You sound like the shard already speaks through you. Tom chuckled softly, though there was no lightness in his heart. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. The shard was a gift, but also a test that had only begun. Humanity's trial would not be inside golden halls, but in the choices they made outside, under the open sky. That night, Tom barely slept. The shard pulsed faintly beside him, and with each beat, he felt visions stirring in his mind. He saw designs of machines that could clean oceans, towers that could draw energy from the stars, and vessels that could travel between worlds. But he also saw fire, conflict, and the danger of ambition without wisdom. When dawn came, Tom rose with quiet resolve. He packed the shard carefully and looked across the desert. The dunes stretched endlessly, but to him, they no longer felt empty. They were the roof of something alive, something that had trusted him with its final secret. Myra stood beside him, watching the sunrise. The labyrinth has chosen its inheritor, she said softly. But the true test is ahead. Tom placed a hand over the shard. Yes, and it is not only my test. It belongs to all of us. They walked together across the desert, leaving no trace behind. The sun climbed higher, the sand shifting with the wind, covering the place where the labyrinth slept once more. But deep within the earth, the golden halls pulsed faintly, as if listening. The labyrinth had not vanished. It had passed its flame into human hands. Tom did not feel like a conqueror or a hero. He felt like a messenger carrying a fire across dark land, a fire that could either guide or consume. The builders had called humanity the final inheritors. Now the meaning of that name would be decided by the choices ahead. As the desert stretched before him, Tom walked on with steady steps. The shard glowed warmly in his hand, and though the weight of the world pressed upon his shoulders, he carried it willingly. The desert had given its secret. The labyrinth had trusted him. And now, humanity's future waited.